Okay, you ready?
I think so.
Okay. Tell me at what point in your life you decided to coach, and why did you decide at that point to become a coach?
That's a good question.
You can take your time.
I don't know if there was a set time when I decided to be a coach. I think it was something that was always inside me. That I always I felt that I wanted to be a teacher since I was probably in high school, and I guess teaching is very similar to coaching. But I don't know if there was a set point where I was like I wanted to be a coach. I think it was just always inside me that I wanted to teach, and coaching is kind of an offshoot of that. So I know that doesn't directly answer your question, but it's the best I got.
Okay. If you had to pick three adjectives to describe yourself as a player, what would they be?
As a player,
Yes, a player.
as a player. So when I used to play, I think the number one adjective that would describe me was intense. I was a very very intense basketball player. Very I guess competitive would be a second one, but that kind of goes hand in hand with intense. So very competitive, very very intense. Not always the best player, but I was always very 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 competitive. I hated to lose, and I guess hard worker would be the third adjective to describe me. Intense, competitive, and hardworking.
How do you feel who you were as a player influenced how you coach today?
I think that I think you can see direct ties to how I was as a player and the teams that I coach. I also think that I've evolved as a coach, so I've changed a little bit in what I value from our teams, but always being able to compete and being the hardest working team are things that you definitely can see in our teams here at Devon.
If you had to pick an NBA player that represents the right way to play the game, who would you pick and why?
I am not a fan of NBA basketball, so I don't know many players in the NBA. I very rarely watch NBA games, so I don't know if this is going to be 100% accurate. I'm sure there are other players out there, but I think that the Villanova players that are playing in the NBA play a lot very similar to how we play at Devon. I think what's his name, the guard, it's slipping my mind, on the Knicks. Brunson. I think Brunson, how he plays off of 2 feet, how he's always under control. He's not the biggest, he's not the strongest, he's not the most athletic, but he always winds up getting to his spots and doing the right things on the floor. I think that is very similar to what we strive for offensively here at Devon. Defensively, I don't really know many of the players in the NBA, like I said. So, but I think Brunson would be the closest one to what we try and do at Devon offensively.
How do you, as a coach, get your players to buy into their role on the team?
That is a great question, and that is always a challenge. I think the best way to do that is through conversations. The conversations aren't always easy, but making the players understand that it's bigger than them, that they do have a role, that their role is valuable, whether it's the leading scorer or the last player on the bench, and truly believing that. Like, I think coaches sometimes just say those things just to have a conversation and move on, and they don't genuinely care about their players. And I think the players can see right through that they know that you're just being fake just to move on. But if you genuinely care about the player and care about that role, and that role has value to the overall program, I think that goes a long way, and players appreciate that, and they try and fulfill that role to the best of their abilities.
Of all the coaches in any professional sport, who do you admire the most and why?
Professional sports, I don't know who that would be. In my one of the coaches that I've always looked up to was Tom Izzo of Michigan State, because he I think I would have loved to play for him. I think that his teams embody the adjectives that I gave you earlier about how I used to play. They always play hard. They always compete, and I think that he strives for that as a coach and gets the most out of his team. So Tom Izzo at Michigan State, he was coaching back when I was in high school. Has always done that, and he's always the coach that I've I've admired and tried to build our programs off of what he does at Michigan State.
If you had to choose, would you rather have your team built around... Okay, we're back. If you had to choose, would you rather have your team built around offense or defense, and why?
100% it would be built around defense. Offensively, basketball is a strange game. You can't always control what happens. Sometimes they're great shots and they just don't go in. But defensively, you can always control that effort. And you can really dictate the tempo, the pace of the game by how you play defense. So I would choose defense over offense.
Now, every basketball coach has an assistant coach. What strengths would you want your assistant coach to bring to the team, and why?
I think the biggest strength an assistant coach can have is to be confident in his own abilities to challenge what the head coach is saying. And I think a lot of times assistant coaches just kind of go with the flow, and if the head coach says something, they just nod their heads and say yes. But I think for me, having an assistant coach be able to speak up, be able to disagree, and be able to bring things to the table that I'm not thinking of would be the biggest strengths assistant coaches can have. And there can be multiple coaches that do that, but that's, for me, the biggest strength that an assistant coach can have.
There are different coaching styles for every basketball coach out there. How would you describe your coaching style, and what makes it unique to others?
That is a great question. I don't know if there's one way to describe my style. I don't know. I don't know. I think I have an idea of how the game should be played. I try and instill that, and I try and use basketball to teach these guys that there's things out there bigger than basketball. How the style of how I do that really varies based off of the teams that we have and the players. I think getting to know the players on a more personal level, not just as basketball players, really helps instill those things that I just said. But I don't know if I have a set style. I think it does change based off of the situation. I know that's not directly answering your question, but I'm sure some people would say some other things. But yeah, I think that would be a good answer.
Every basketball coach has highs and lows in their careers of coaching. What would you say was your lowest point in your coaching career?
I don't know if there's one low point. I think I try and be very even in how I go through things. I don't know if there's a high point or necessarily a low point. I think the best points for me over my career are the points when I realize that I need to change things and I need to do things a little bit differently. Whether it's by talking to other people or just looking back at decisions that I've made, I think that those are very rewarding things when you have the ability to do that. But I don't know if there's one set low point or one high point in the career. Yeah.
Every basketball coach at some point in their career was an assistant coach. What would you say the most important thing you learned from being an assistant coach was?
I mean, there's a lot of things you learn as being an assistant coach. I was very lucky that I was an assistant coach and a JV coach at the same time, so I had the ability to be the person making the decisions, and also then after those JV games, I was able to go in and watch and be a part of. His name was Tony Chapman coaching and him making decisions. So I kind of had the best of both worlds, where I could make the decision, see what worked, see what didn't work, but then go and watch him make the decisions on a bigger scale. And I think that really helped my personal development as a coach. As far as learning, I mean, I've learned so much from him that I don't know if I can answer this question in a couple minutes, but how to manage a game, when to call timeouts, when not to call timeouts, how to interact with players. Like he coached for over 40 years, had 900 something wins. So I was very lucky to be able to be put in that opportunity where I could be a head coach and then also be an assistant as well. Yeah, Go one more.
Okay. Every coach goes through losses in basketball. What was your toughest loss, and how has that loss impacted how you coach today?
Um, I don't. I mean, if I had to pick an individual loss, I think that the one loss that was a great game, and I don't know if either team actually lost the game, would be the game against Trinity in the state quarterfinals 2003, I think. That was just a very, very well played game. Their coach was excellent, and the team was very good, and our team was very good at the time too. And it was just a great battle, and that was a tough loss. Yeah, I guess that would be the toughest loss that we've had on the court. All right. Do you want me to?
When you walk into every practice, what is your main goal every time you walk into practice, and how do you think that goal has affected the players you coach?
I think each individual practice is built differently, obviously, but I think the overall goal is that when we leave the court, when we leave whatever we're doing, that we're a little bit better than what we were when we stepped onto it. And I think if you take that approach and you are just a teeny bit better each time, it may not appear like you're doing anything in the short term, but in the long term, you add up all of those little victories, and you look back and you see a huge, huge change.
In your whole coaching career, what was your most memorable moment, and what made that moment so special?
I think if I had to look back, the most memorable moment for me was when last year we ran the tournament here in honor of my dad, for a lot of reasons. He passed away 2 years ago, and he always loved basketball. He loved watching the game, watching me coach. To run that event in his honor was special, and I think that would be the most memorable moment for me personally. Was doing that last year.
In games where your players don't meet your expectations as a coach, how do you handle that post game? How do you handle post game talks with your players when they don't meet your expectations as a coach?
I mean, I think that varies tremendously on situations. Like sometimes we play in a really, really tough league where a lot of things are out of our control. Like, and so the players, if they're giving maximum effort and they're trying to do things, I think that but they just can't, like, for physical reasons. And I think you have to take that into account and be understanding that they're trying and they're getting better, but they're just not doing what we had put on the board or what we had practiced for those reasons. If players aren't giving maximum effort, then that's a different conversation. But I think that goes back to what we had said earlier about our teams always have to be the team that works hardest. And if you do that every day, good things tend to happen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.